Hi there, and thank you for joining us for another Fireside Chat. I'm Jennifer White, PETA UK's Media and Communications Manager. Today, we're going to take you to Turkey, where rescuers supported by PETA's Global Compassion Fund are risking their lives to pull animals out of damaged buildings following the devastating earthquake there. This kind of work is exactly what our Global Compassion Fund, or GCF, is for. We not only conduct life-saving spay and neuter campaigns and do innovative outreach and education work, but we're also able to do rapid response rescue work when disaster hits. Rescuers supported by the GCF have responded to explosions in Beirut, a volcanic eruption in the Philippines, floods in New South Wales, the war in Ukraine, and now the earthquakes in Turkey and Syria. It began on February 6th. At a magnitude of 7.8, it was one of the worst earthquakes the region has ever experienced. More than 57,000 people died and 14 million people were affected, with millions of people made homeless as a result of the quake. The damage extends to an area about the size of Germany. And because this disaster struck in winter, survivors and rescuers had to contend with the risk of hypothermia, and winter storms have sometimes interfered with rescue efforts. Since the main quake, there have been more than 10,000 aftershocks, and some of these have been severe. On February 20th, an aftershock with a magnitude of 6.4 hit near Antakya, and you'll hear more about this later. Another serious aftershock with a magnitude of 5.6 hit near Malatya on February 27th. These aftershocks have made an already dangerous situation even worse, collapsing more buildings, killing more people, and traumatizing survivors of all species. That's where PETA's Global Compassion Fund comes in. When we respond to a disaster, we are among the first rescue teams to reach the area, and we are focused only on rescuing as many animals as possible, reuniting them with their families if we can, and finding them new homes if we can't. I've been working closely with our rescue teams on the ground to help them share their stories with the press in the UK and elsewhere. Major news publications in the UK helped spread Kat Behul's story far and wide, which you'll hear later along with other compelling stories of individuals who our team rescued. Ingrid Newkirk, President and founder of PETA, is here to take you on this journey to show you the life-saving work the Global Compassion Fund is doing there. Ingrid, over to you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Now, let's go to Turkey and Syria, two beautiful countries with rich histories that have seen such strife. Syria, of course, has been devastated by civil war, and Turkey has taken in millions of refugees from that war. PETA and our partners had been working in the region long before the quake on February the 6th. We've been supporting local shelters and sanctuaries in their work. Pigs we helped rescue from a Turkish lab are now living peacefully at a partner sanctuary. And long ago, we replaced bony horses who were used to haul garbage with mechanized vehicles. Those horses are now in a beautiful farm in Germany. Then starting in 2018, we collected hundreds of fur coats, all donated by people who'd realized the cruelty of fur and decided they could no longer wear them. And we shipped those coats to refugees who needed a way to help keep warm. Turkey has always had a homeless animal crisis. Stray dogs and cats have roamed the streets of Turkish cities for hundreds of years. But it's only recently that laws have been passed to protect them. Our partners in Turkey have been part of efforts to spay and neuter and care for homeless animals. But with the country also struggling to cope with inflation and mass poverty, we've also seen people abandoning dogs and cats when they truly can no longer afford to provide for them. Then on February the 6th, a massive earthquake hit, and Turkey and Syria descended into chaos. 14 million people and 4 million buildings were affected by the quake, and more than 2 million people were evacuated from the worst hit provinces. Tens of thousands of buildings had to be demolished, because they were too severely damaged and too dangerous to be left standing. We went immediately to the Turkish border with Syria, and we began helping animals who had survived. Because of the civil war and because of anti-terrorism laws, it's almost impossible to enter Syria, and it's almost impossible to send money directly there. But we did find ways to work through Germany and Holland to render aid. With your support, we've also worked with our partners to fund shelters and other organizations in both countries. In the midst of this chaos, PETA UK, PETA US, and PETA Germany raced to get rescuers to the most affected sites. Here's a glimpse of what they found. Their very first mission was incredibly risky. Rescuers had to break into a pet shop in the basement of a badly damaged building, one side of which had collapsed entirely. They knew that the whole building could fall at any moment, but they took the risk and they were able to crawl inside and save 40 birds. All the other animals had died, crushed under fallen masonry, but they took out the birds, and now all of them are receiving wonderful care at a sanctuary near Ankara. Day after day, our teams have risked their own safety to pull animals out of the rubble near the epicenter of the quake. One team found a dog with a broken leg who had gone for days without food in freezing temperatures. But thanks to the support of the Global Compassion Fund, she's been able to get surgery to repair her leg. Every single animal we rescue is scanned for a microchip by one of our partners. Since so many companion animals have been separated from their families, this is a crucial step. One of those animals was Bela. Weeks after the quake, our rescue teams found a scared and hungry cat wandering the streets of Hatay. Bela's microchip enabled us to identify him and to track down his family. His guardian, a 16-year-old girl named Elif, had been staying with her grandparents when the quake hit. Elif spent over 24 hours buried alive before she was rescued. She lost both her grandparents, and she didn't think she would ever see her beloved cat again. But she was clinging to the hope that she would. And here's a little video of their happy reunion. It's always a beautiful moment when we're able to reunite an animal with the people who love them. But the circumstances our teams are working in are just unbelievably difficult. As you can see from these videos, the damage was devastating. And add to that the thousands of aftershocks, some severe, that kept shaking already damaged buildings. And add having to contend with officials understandably anxious to rapidly demolish those unstable buildings. Our teams have been up against a lot. Our rescuers have had to argue with local officials who want them to stay away from those damaged buildings, but they simply can't do that. In one instance, our team heard a cat meowing loudly and desperately from inside a building. and after getting past the shattered glass of the entryway, they determined that the cat was trapped behind a padlocked door in the basement. But a police officer refused to open the door, saying this was a government building and no one had permission to enter it. The team then contacted the fire department, but they too cited the law, saying they didn't have permission to go inside either. Of course, our team wasn't about to abandon this cat. They waited until the police had left, then one of our rescuers raced into the building, scrambled down into the pitch-dark basement, smashed open the padlock on the door, and found that cat. Straight into the carrier he went, and out of the building they flew. That little cat was soon eating and drinking, after being trapped for who knows how many days. The team pumped their fists in celebration and named him Kirk. Every victory like this one gives our rescuers renewed strength, but the work is perilous and the sheer scale of suffering in the region is difficult to witness. If you'd care to leave an encouraging note for our rescuers, letting them know that you support their hard work saving animals' lives, please post it in the chat box below your screen, or you can email them to the email address listed below, and we will make sure that they get your message. Obviously, most animals our teams encounter have suffered great trauma, and they require a lot of coaxing to come close enough to be rescued. But some animals vigorously cry out for the help they crave. Our rescuers talk about cat alarm bells, cats who are trapped inside buildings and who mew their hearts out. Here's one such cat whom rescuers had to get a crane to retrieve from a fourth-floor balcony.
We're coming, we're coming. Sweetheart, where are you?
She's not in here, is she?
Where are you? Maybe on the other side of that wall.
She's in here. She's in here. Oh, so glad.
Come. Come on, darling. Good girl. Let's go over here. Yeah.
When our teams hear one of these clever cats calling for help, they will stop at nothing to get them out. One Global Compassion Fund supported team had just loaded a homeless cat with a broken tail into a rescue vehicle when they heard another cat calling from a rooftop. They were incredibly worried that the cat would try to jump. So one of our rescuers scaled a fence, climbed onto a balcony, and squeezed through a gaping hole in the damaged wall to get to the building's staircase. Up she went, found the cat, and the cat went right into the carrier, hungry for the food he had brought. Back at the clinic, a microchip led them to his guardian's cell phone number. His guardian called out his name over the phone, and Dooman arched his back and rubbed against the phone. Dooman has now been reunited with his guardian in a far safer part of Turkey. Dooman's rescue not only has a joyful ending, it's also a great example of how these rescues go. First, our teams enter the affected area. Sometimes that means coaxing homeless animals off the street, and sometimes, as with Dooman, Leona, Kirk, and many others, it means getting inside these buildings to try to free animals who've been trapped inside. Depending on the animal's needs, the team might get them ready for transport to our partner veterinary clinic in Adana, or they might take the animal straight to the infield tent that's been set up by our longtime partner, HATAP. HATAP is able to give animals pain relief and scan them for those microchips right there, and the Global Compassion Fund is supporting all those efforts. Ultimately, all the rescued animals must be transported to safer locations, starting with that veterinarian in Adana. But there have been times when no place feels truly safe. Jennifer mentioned February the 20th. That's when a magnitude 6.4 aftershock hit, bringing more buildings down and rattling everyone's nerves. Our team and the entire staff of the clinic slept in their cars that night. And when the clinic gets overwhelmed by the sheer number of animals needing care, our rescuers have to step up. After a full day searching the rubble, they not only transport the animals they've rescued back to Adana, but then, despite their exhaustion, they pitch in to help feed the animals at the clinic, walk the dogs, and do whatever else is needed. We love them for that. It would be so easy to be overwhelmed by the sheer scale of this work, but our teams feel inspired because they know they're saving animals who are in deep trouble and who will die without their help. One other thing they also make sure is that every individual they rescue gets spayed or neutered, because we want this vital work to not just save animals today, but to make sure the population of animals in need isn't multiplied into the future. In a second, I'll show you another lovely video. The team knows that terrified survivors can often hide wherever they feel safest, perhaps inside sofa springs, behind kitchen cabinets, curled up in a tiny hole, and they must be searched for. Others are outside in the rubble. One cat we found in Maresh was hiding in a completely destroyed building with missing walls. But our team found him, got him into a carrier, and he now has all the love and the care a cat needs. He has even become an American citizen. I'll let Alex tell you that story.
When we arrived at the scene, it's just absolute destruction. Most, if not all, of the buildings are completely collapsed or about to collapse. PETA came from Marash, one of the epicenters of the main earthquake. There was no wall to that building anymore. I climbed up on some of the rubble and I just helped him into the carrier, and he got right in. He didn't have a microchip and didn't have a family to contact. We have 2 dogs, and I wanted to make sure that everyone felt comfortable with PETA's arrival. He actually is doing really, really well. I think that they love him just as much as I do. He just fits in. He's part of the family now.
Stories like this wouldn't be possible without your support. It's your participation in the Global Compassion Fund that allows us to quickly put a team together when a disaster like this occurs. Our rescue teams are still there in Turkey, combing the ruins for survivors. 290 cats and some wonderful dogs so far. And of course, as you know, our teams are still in Ukraine, helping despite enormous challenges there. And when the next disaster hits, wherever it is around the world, we may be packing to go there too. Obviously, we can't do this life-saving work without your help. So thank you. We deeply appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Ingrid. And I also want to say thank you to the brave rescuers who are out there climbing over rubble and risking their lives to save animals. As Ingrid mentioned, if you want to share a message of thanks and encouragement with our rescue teams, you can post it in the chat box below or email it to the email address listed below, and we will make sure they see it. Of course, the best way to support our rescue teams is by supporting the Global Compassion Fund that makes their work possible. Today, we're asking you to make a monthly donation to the GCF. As you've seen, doing this work requires us to respond quickly when there is a need, and then stick it out for the long haul. In order to do that, we need to know we have the resources to not just send teams into the field, but to keep them there as long as it takes. Your monthly donation will allow us to keep supporting our brave rescuers until every animal in Turkey is safe. Just click the link at the bottom of your screen and you'll be taken to our donation page. If you've been to any of our Fireside chats before, then you'll know something about the life-saving work our rescue teams have done around the world. The Global Compassion Fund has supported teams saving animals from war zones in Ukraine, from a volcanic eruption in the Philippines, from an explosion in Beirut, and now we're pulling animals out of the rubble in Turkey. And we don't just respond to crises. We also do long-term, life-saving work in many countries. The GCF supports PETA India's emergency response team, so we can respond quickly to reports of animal abuse, almost 1,000 of them every week. We've also supported major spay and neuter campaigns in Romania, the Philippines, Mexico, India, and more, helping to reduce the chronic problem of animal homelessness and prevent suffering for the long term. Your support means the world to us and to the thousands and thousands of animals around the world that the Global Compassion Fund is able to help. Please give what you can. I'll leave you with one more rescue story. Venus the cat was undoubtedly traumatized, hiding in a damaged apartment building. Her guardians had already been inside to search for her, but hadn't been able to find her. They asked our rescue team for help. The team searched everywhere inside that building and eventually found Venus hiding behind a washing machine. They were able to coax her into a carrier. And here's what happened next.
Bunlar yabancı.
Buradan mı kalıyorlar?
YouTube var. Yeah, thank you. That's okay. Bebeğim. Venüs. Neredeydi? Neredeydi? Hadi iyisin hadi.
You're welcome.
Animals like Venus are exactly why we do this work, because every single animal we save is a life changed forever. Whether the animals we rescue are reunited with their families or sent to live with new families or in peaceful sanctuaries, they are living lives of peace and happiness thanks to your support. Thank you for joining us. Goodbye.